everyone! Welcome to today's episode of Was That Thing a Good Idea? Because it might have been one of those ideas you get late at night, up on caffeine, and lacking proper logic. Cheetos were probably involved, but Cheez-Its are better, so... And that's how the Snuggie was born. What was I talking about again? Right, I'm talking about My Little Pony. Yeah, that's a thing. A thing that I apparently talk about a lot. Instead, let's talk about a specific aspect of the franchise, Equestria Girls. Love it or hate it, this spin-off franchise of My Little Pony seems to be around to stay. A takeoff of similar marketing ideas like Monster High, Ever After, and the Disney Descendants, this corner of the My Little Pony world was met with much criticism when first announced, at least by bronies. You guys remember it? There were fires in the streets and riots outside Megan McCarthy's house, and it was great! This movie, at least from the adult audience point of view, didn't seem to make sense. It smelled like an obvious cash grab. Because it was.
Money.
Additionally, putting the horses in high school kinda simplified the characters, I think. It didn't seem to blend well. That being said, Hasbro Big Boss Corporation felt otherwise, thinking putting the ponies in high school was a good idea, as we can see from the testaments of the show staff at the time. See, apparently they see all the human fandom and are like, wait, we can do that, and so Equestria Girls was born. It seemed like a win-win for both the bronies and Hasbro, but as time went on, I guess the self-aware humor of the first movie helped with the transition a little more. The brony audience seemed to have, for the most part, shifted their view on the franchise since the movies came out, as in the past it was much more divided.
Because all the other bronies hate it, and if I say that I like it, then I won't fit in.
As most are now looking forward to future developments. Using my science brain, this seems to be for a multitude of reasons. The self-aware humor did help as well as the branding. See, the human girls were obviously not ponies, but they were essentially alternate versions of our horse girls. Although growing up in a human world and having been raised in a different society and having different memories, the essence of the characters are still the same. This is naturally appealing to the people who have already loved their horse counterparts. Arguably, this makes them more relatable. So once people got over the transition, the update wasn't so bad. Another factor to consider is Sunset Shimmer herself. Yes, fans seem to have such a sweet spot for a bad guy who's seen the error of their ways. At least the first time it was new.
Cindy the Clown!
He is exactly like you in every way.
Nowadays, she seems to be the unofficial mascot of the series, and seems to also be the most predominant original character that the series has created. All that said, was Equestria Girls a good idea? Now we can look back in hindsight and speculate. Let's look at the facts. So far, we have a bunch of movies, spin-off marketing including toys, comic books, etc. So I think it's pretty safe to say at this point that at least for Hasbro, it was definitely worth the risk. As far as other points of view, the high school setting has always stuck out to be an oddity. This setting, frankly, doesn't seem to work with such a high fantasy setting. It clashes with the tone and doesn't progress the story in a natural way. Yes, when I think of My Little Pony, I totally think of High School Musical.
Schools, but none can make those claims. Na.
For what the writers had, I do think Megan McCarthy and other senior staff at Hasbro did the best they could for a premise that didn't really fit with the show's lore and Foss' original vision of the show. There's no doubt in my mind when the show was getting pitched around, this wasn't what anyone had in mind. This was just an idea that developed over time, and Hasbro had to make a decision to do what was best to compete with an existing market. That being said, I personally believe the situation was not ideal. We just gotta roll with it. And people seem to respond to the positive changes. I don't think in the long run it was best for the lore of the show, but can you imagine?
You guys know Lord of the Rings, right? That famous movie about elves and non-human powers and good and evil and all that shit? Well, now they're in high school. Play with your favorite characters in a whole new way.
OMG, I love your outfit, boy.
Thanks, bro. Did he just call me fat?
You see what I mean? It's weird for a high fantasy setting. That being said, it seems to have found a home for those who are willing to look past the cover of the book, which seems to be a thing for the brony audience. The final verdict? From a financial standpoint for Hasbro, it seems to be a yes from what I can tell, but its general presence does seem to hurt the brand name, sometimes with the believability of the high fantasy setting. Sunset makes it all worth it though. And the brony population doesn't seem to mind at this point. Take it what you will, and talk about it in the comments and stuff. And that's all, folks, except it's not time for the ending gag.